Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name's Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Corporal Luke McHiggins. We warmly welcome the family of Lieutenant Ernest William Spreadborough, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony around Australia. During this evening's ceremony, family will be laying a wreath at the base of the Pool of Reflection. Could I ask you to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem? If you're able to be seated, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Ernest Spreadborough, who was killed fighting in France during the First World War. Ernest William Spreadborough was born in 1874, one of 10 children of John and Anne Spreadborough of Warwick on the Darling Downs in southeast Queensland. He was raised in the area, became a school teacher, and married Edith Hamilton in 1900. Spreadborough had been headmaster at Brandon State School near Townsville before taking up an appointment at Mount Beppo on Lake Wivenhoe, and on the eve of the First World War, he was a certified instructor of junior cadets as part of the government's Universal Training Scheme, which put him in good stead for military service in the coming years. He enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force as soon as the strict entry requirements were relaxed in June 1915. By then he was 40 years old, and his younger brother Harold had been invalided home from Gallipoli. After signing on in Brisbane, Spreadborough was sent to Broadmeadows Camp on the outskirts of Melbourne as part of the 31st Battalion. Given his previous experience with instructing junior cadets, he was temporarily appointed Company Sergeant Major and was commissioned as a second lieutenant before the battalion embarked for Egypt the following month. The fighting on Gallipoli was ending just as the 31st Battalion arrived in Egypt, so the following months were spent training in preparation for deployment to the Western Front. Spreadborough was promoted to lieutenant in March 1916 and set sail for France with the rest of the Australian 5th Division 2 weeks later. The 31st Battalion was among the first Australian units to see action on the Western Front. Less than 2 weeks after arriving in France, the battalion was moved into the line near the town of Armentières. The 5th Division was allocated the task of attacking the German positions near the town of Fromelles, in an attempt to prevent the German troops in the area being sent as reinforcements to the fighting on the Somme. The inexperienced Australians and equally inexperienced British Division alongside them went into action on the evening of the 19th of July 1916, in what was ultimately a costly and unsuccessful venture. By the following morning, the Australian 5th Division had suffered some 5,500 casualties in what some historians believe was the worst 24 hours in Australian history. Among the missing was Ernest Spreadborough, who was last seen heading out into no man's land to take command of Bravo Company following news that his captain had been killed fighting in the German trenches. According to one eyewitness, he was hit by a German machine gun bullet as he headed out towards the trenches, but nobody knew of his condition or whereabouts in the weeks after the action. Spreadborough's body was discovered by an Australian patrol scouting in no man's land 2 months later on the 19th of July. While the patrol removed his identification discs, no mention was made of his body being recovered. Today, he is commemorated on a memorial at VC Corner Cemetery near Fromelles, along with the 1,184 Australians killed in the action who have no known graves. Ernest Spreadborough's name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among the 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. He is seated in the front row, third from the right. This is but one of many stories of courage and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now honour Lieutenant Ernest Spreadborough, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you a very good evening. Thank you.